Hello everyone. It's so good to be here with you today. So as we start, I want to share with you a phrase in Arabic that I love the most. And it says, Al-ilmu nur wal-jahlu dhalam. And that means knowledge is light and ignorance is darkness. My life was pre-planned on my behalf, just like generations of women before me. And my life was so simple. It was to grow up with an unblemished reputation and then to enroll at a university as a way to buy time until I got married. To grow up and then, of course, to enroll at a university until I got married. Getting married early was so much more important than completing a degree or aspiring for a successful career. I got married when I was 20 to the most eligible bachelor in our community, and my parents were thrilled. His mom was the one that she did the initial introduction. She saw me initially when I was 16 years old. I was coming from school in my brown uniform and she was visiting my mom, and that's when she decided that I would be a perfect match for their family and specifically for her son. In my situation, I was open to this because that's all I knew at that time. But I only had one condition. And the condition was that I wanted to complete my education. I wanted to graduate with my bachelor's degree. I didn't know then how this is just the graduation, how much it's going to save me in the future. Because knowledge is light and ignorance is darkness. So we got married and we moved to San Diego, California to follow his career aspirations. I thought that with this marriage and the move to the US, I could finally be allowed to discover my identity and be respected for who I truly am. So far away from the culture, I could finally grow beyond my vase. But to my shock, my vase was FedExed from Jordan to San Diego, and I was expected to continue to follow and obey. Actually, the limitations were bigger and the expectations were more strict. Living in that marriage and in the US was just a matter of geography. That marriage was not a partnership. I felt like his property, there to serve him and his family, completely controlled by them. Even with my disappointment, I continued to live the life that was expected of me. But then years later, I found that I was struggling. I was feeling empty, unhappy, and lost. I felt that there was no purpose in my life, and I felt at that time that my life was not going to get any better. Something in my heart just kept saying, feel the fear, take action, leave. But I knew I couldn't leave, and I also knew I couldn't stay. Staying meant that I would continue to lose myself, and leaving meant that there would be horrible consequences, and it would be perceived as if I broke the glass vase by my family and community. And I was very much warned by my parents that if I left, there would be horrible consequences and my life would be a danger. So I continued to live and get into more depression. But then one day I woke up too depressed to even get out of bed. And I didn't know what to do with my life at that moment. By the end of the day, my heart just could not handle it anymore, and I packed and I left. Going to bed that night, I knew that I cracked the vase, and as terrified as I was, I knew that I made the right choice. I can tell you this, it turned out to be so much worse than I've ever imagined. Not only did my entire family disown me, but one attempted to have me killed, and that one is my father. Because in the Middle East, we believe in something called honor killing, or they believe in it. And what that means is if a woman does anything that is not accepted by the family, her father or her brother would just kill her. And it would actually be celebrated because it's considered by shedding her blood that they're bringing honor back to the family and erasing the shame that she brought it. So in their perspective, they felt that I brought them shame just by leaving an unhealthy marriage. The only reason I'm alive 18 years later is because my father is in Jordan, and I'm here in the US. He doesn't know how to speak English. He wouldn't be able to navigate and come and find me, thank God. And that's the reason I'm here, and that's the reason I'm here in front of you right now. So at that time, I knew that something needed to change, and I needed to create a new story, change the story from a young girl that I felt so silenced and I had no identity, to a new woman, self-empowered, confident, and responsible for her own choices. I just didn't know how to do that. So I leaned on education because I knew that in order for me to continue to grow and discover my identity and discover my self-worth, the only way is by knowledge is light. I wanted to bring knowledge and light into my life. So I enrolled in a master's in business program at the University of San Diego. After my first semester, a professor, Dr. Starling, approached me and encouraged me to run to become the president of the student organization. I laughed at that time because I knew in my heart I didn't have any leadership skills. I never saw myself as a leader. I was programmed early on in my life to believe that I'm a follower. And he saw that I looked like other students. I had the right clothes. I acted very focused in the class, but he didn't realize how broken I was inside and how tired and exhausted and terrified for my survival. It's not just the physical survival, it is also financially to be able to survive, to emotionally. That was just so difficult to be able to move on compared to where I was. But at that time, before he even asked me to become the president, I was so determined to graduate. I was so determined to get my MBA. I was so determined to get myself out of the mess that I was in. So I would tell myself, whatever it takes, whatever it takes. I got tons of student loans. I was working all day. I was going to school at night because that was so important to me to be able to change that story. He didn't know any of that. He just saw me as another student. And every time I saw him, he would insist that I should run to be the president. And I would say, no, thank you. I don't think I have any leadership skills. Until today, I don't know why he kept doing that. But finally, I just wanted him to stop. And I said, okay, I will run. And to my shock, I was elected. I didn't realize then that this one commitment, as terrifying as it was, would change me for the rest of my life. A journey of my own leadership discovery just started. After a few semesters, I decided to start applying for jobs. I believed at that time that I wasn't good in interviewing skills and I wanted to practice them. So I started applying to every single company that I was able to. And I was shocked because all of them gave me job offers, including IBM for their leadership development program. They only select 8 MBA students for that program to start right after we graduate from all of the US, as if they saw something in me that I didn't even recognize in myself, just like what Dr. Starling, he saw something in me that I didn't even see it because of all of my negative programming. So I graduated, I joined IBM, I got to live and travel around the world in various leadership roles, and I got to work with the most amazing executives who were so interested in my development. They mentored me and they believed in me. And I was so shocked because I started not just managing global teams, but also people would reach out to me as a mentor, which was so shocking to me because, again, whatever I was projecting to the world was so different how I perceived myself internally. And I loved leadership. As I was growing up, I didn't understand what leadership is, but now for the first time I discovered that leadership is taking care of the team, believing in them, encouraging them, seeing their potential when they cannot see it. So just like I couldn't see my potential, I realized that other people couldn't see their potential, and I started helping them to grow, and I fell in love with it. So in addition to my job, I volunteered with IBM to start teaching leadership courses around the world, and I absolutely loved it. Hello? Yeah, maybe the battery. Oh, and hello? Okay, maybe this time is okay. I don't think it's okay. 1, 2, yeah, maybe we need battery. If I speak loud, would you hear me? And I absolutely loved it. And I realized that now it is my opportunity to give back and help people across cultures discover their potential, but mainly help them transform their internal limitations, the fear, the vases that are stopping them. One thing I learned for a fact is that we're all living with vases, regardless of our background. They come with different colors or shapes, but they all inhibit us from living the life that we deserve. And that became something that I'm so passionate about, to help people shatter these vases, believe in themselves, and continue. And, oh, much better. So that became something I'm so passionate about, to help people discover their potential, shatter their vases, and continue to move forward, because that is what makes life so much more worth living. So from my journey, I learned that like so many people would say, how did you plan your transformation journey? And it's not a matter of planning it. I didn't have a documented project plan. What I did is I listened to my intuition. And I continued to hear what truly do I want to do with my life. I started creating a vision of where I want to be heading. And I started facing the fears that show up. There's always going to be fears that show up. And I started taking one step at a time, sometimes small, tiny steps forward, even with the fear. But I would put my heart and soul into them, so I continue to move forward, because that's what makes life so much worth living. And I discovered that the only way for us to shatter our limitations is with self-discovery. The more I connected internally, the more I was able to face these limitations and be able to do something about them. I gave myself the time and space to hear my own voice and to dig deep even when it got tough, and when the external and internal limitations appeared to be so much more stronger than me. I wouldn't be able to have a transformation journey without all the people that showed up in my life and guided me through this journey. Just like Dr. Starling, they saw my potential at a time that I did not realize it. They believed in me, they invested in me, they mentored me, and I'm forever grateful for that. These are the leaders that I admire and the ones that I aspire to be like. So to my grandmother, the pure, perfect glass represents my honor and my reputation. But to me, it represents the unrealistic limitations that I choose not to obey. I look at all of you and I wonder, what vases are you living with? Who told you not to follow your dreams? Who told you not to be yourself? What is holding you back? Is it your culture, a relationship, a job, or is it you? Are you living with the expectations to protect your glass vase? Well, we all have a choice. We can continue to keep our glass vase perfect, clear of any cracks, and continue to satisfy everyone around us and worry of them judging us. And then the worst part is pass it to the future generations and expect the same thing from them. Or we can simply smash it. Smash it into a million pieces. Smash it with all the fear, the worry, and the shame that it represents. What would you choose? So I used, first, isn't it empowering to see the vase shattered on the floor? Yeah, I love it every single time. I used to think that is just me walking around with limitations because of my upbringing in the Middle East and the horrible stories that I was told since I was a little girl. But this story, same exact vase, the fear of making mistakes, the worry of being judged, the aspiration for perfection is stopping them from being creative, from believing in themselves, from moving on with their lives. They come to me as I'm coaching them, and they tell me about their amazing stories and what they want to accomplish in their life and their dreams, and they're filled with energy and excitement. But then the energy starts going down, and they start telling me about all of the fears and insecurities and all the reasons why they should not pursue their dreams. I see it every single day. I see it in one of the women. Her name is Catherine. She is in Baton Rouge. And she is a banker. She would love to be the first executive woman in her bank. She looks up the chain and all of them are men. She looks at the board of directors, all of them are men. And she wants to be the first woman sitting at these high-level seats. She was telling me that she was part of a meeting where all the executives were invited to it, and she was there with some other bankers, and they were discussing some fraud that the banking industry, a new kind of fraud that they were facing. So everybody was sharing their ideas, and she said that she had a really great idea that she believed would help to fix a lot of the issues that no one was considering. But then she also said that after the hour meeting, she did not say a thing, and she just left. She didn't share. And I was so shocked because I know her dream of continuing to advance. And I said, why didn't you share? Why didn't you tell them the idea that you have? And she said, well, what if it turned out to be not a good idea? What if they think I am stupid? She used that word. What if they don't implement it? What if I feel embarrassed? So she would rather just stay quiet than to deal with her own vases. So when we're talking about women in leadership and we want to continue to advance and shatter the glass ceiling and bridge the wage gap, do you think we can do that by staying quiet in meetings? Do you think we'll do that if we're going to be constantly intimidated by what other people are going to think about us and always wanting to be so perfect? Perfect in the way we look, be the perfect daughter, perfect spouse, perfect mom, perfect employee, and even have perfect Christmas. And then we end up losing ourselves because we want to be perfect. We want to give the image of perfection, and it just doesn't work like that. Another woman, her name is Dawn, and in my opinion, she is one of the most strategic people I know. She is amazing. She's been having a dream. Yeah, that's the vase. She's been having a dream of writing a children's book. And her idea sounded so amazing. In my opinion, it sounded better than even Harry Potter. It is like that amazing. And she's been talking about it for 10 years. And I said, well, why didn't you start writing? And she said, what if nobody buys it? What if it doesn't turn out to be as good idea as I think it is? What if, tons of what ifs. And she has not written anything for the last 10 years. It's just in her head. Do you know how many creative people are missing out on something so wonderful because of the same thing? And the problem is, it's not just us individually we're missing out. We're having our company, our team, even our entire community and the world miss out because we are so scared of moving forward. She can write it. Who cares if anybody buys it? Who cares? Just write it. Let your creativity shine, because there's so much we learn about ourselves every time we are following these dreams and our intuition. Another woman, her name is Mary, and Mary is in her mid-40s, and she believes that she is not good enough. Totally believes it. It's so ingrained in every single cell in her body. And of course she wants to continue to grow, and she wants to achieve bigger dreams, but she's stuck in her vase that she is not good enough. That's the story she keeps telling herself. So as I was coaching her, we were trying to figure out where this came from. Like, how is it possible for somebody to think like that about herself? And it turned out when she was 12, her coach for a sports team did not select her for a certain activity. And at that moment, as a 12-year-old girl, she told herself that the reason she was not selected is because she wasn't good enough. And she lived with that same programming all her life. Can you imagine how much more she would have achieved if she truly believed in herself, if she didn't have this one negative programming that's playing in her head every single day, every time she has to speak in a meeting, every time she has to present, every time she's interviewing for a job, she's constantly, most likely, telling herself before these meetings that she's not good enough. And do you think she will get these opportunities and be able to shine? Absolutely not. This vase is stopping her. So from my journey, I want to share with you 3 lessons that I learned that are so essential for us to continue to grow and believe in ourselves and to shatter the vase. The first one, now do we have battery? We need battery? Oh, wait, this one. Thank you. So I'm just going to look at you. Yeah, we're having battery issues today. So the first one is we need to recognize that the beauty is in our cracks. The crack that my grandmother told me about, to her represented something so ugly, something that I should be ashamed of. It is the mistake that's going to result in me being rejected by my family and community. But I believe that the beauty is in our cracks. The beauty is that come from the mistakes that make us unique and all the growth and the lessons that we get out of that. It is okay not to be perfect. It is okay to make mistakes. It's okay to recognize our beauty and the things that many women, we try to hide about ourselves, to recognize that this is the blessing that we have for our life and also for the future generations. So one of the things that I love, and I learned about it when I lived in Japan with IBM, and if we can go to the next one. I'm going to try to make it easier. I don't know. Something that I learned when I lived in Japan, they believe that when a pottery gets broken, they can glue it back with gold, copper, and silver. And they believe that it becomes even so much more valuable and worth so much more when it is being put together. Can you imagine about our lives if we start seeing our lives like that? That our beauty is because of these cracks, and they're coming together with gold, copper, and silver to make us so much more valuable to ourselves and to the world. Don't you think we can start seeing ourselves in a whole different world? I was traveling last week from New Orleans, because I live in Baton Rouge, from New Orleans to New York. And there was this man sitting next to me, and we got on the plane, and when they closed the door and announced that the door is closed and we're ready for takeoff, he realized that he forgot his passport at the check-in counter, and the guy freaked out. So as I was listening to him, talking to the flight crew and screaming out of control, I could recognize the accent. It's a Middle Eastern accent. So he couldn't communicate with them, even though he lives in New Orleans, but his English is really bad. So I volunteered to start interpreting, and I started talking to them and calming him down and trying to explain to him what they were saying, because the man assumed that they're going to stop the flight or go back to the gate, open the gate. They're going to take time for him to go out, get his passport, and come back and sit back next to me. That's what he thought. But of course, they were explaining something very opposite of that he didn't want to understand. So after we communicated, he ended up deciding to stay. They closed the gate and we took off. And he started asking me questions immediately. And I knew where he was going to head. It's always the same questions. His first question to me was, he said, "Are you married?" And I said, "No, I am divorced." And we have a body language in like a certain thing we do in our body in the Middle East, which represents like a lot of shame. And he is like this. So he started doing this. He forgot I just helped him. And that meant that it's very shameful. And he's like, "What is wrong?" As if there's something wrong with me. And he said, how would your parents allow you to get divorced? How would they allow you to live alone? And the man was going crazy on me, totally judging me. But to me, I was entertained because I have a lot of confidence in myself. I believe that my beauty is in my cracks. I'm not going to allow someone like him to put me down, which that's exactly what he was trying to do. Part of his programming is to look at what he believes is the negative thing about other people and make them feel so horrible about themselves. So I ignored him, and part of ignoring him is I just went to sleep. I fell asleep and then let him talk. And I fell asleep. When I woke up, he was so excited to share with me that he found the passport. And I was so shocked because he was going through all of his bag like so many times in front of me. And I said, well, congratulations, that's great. And I said, where did you find it? He said, I found it in my shoes. So he had his passport. I don't know why he had his passport in his shoes. And how would he forget or not feel that it is in his shoes? And as we were landing in JFK, we were on top of water. And he looked at me and he said, I was right next to the window. And he said, is this the Mediterranean? And I'm like, and you're judging me? So this man who has his passport in his shoes and thinks that the Mediterranean is on our way landing 20 minutes away from JFK, thinks that he can judge me and make me feel horrible about myself because of my cracks, because of my beautiful decisions that I made in my life. Think about the people that you're worried of judging you. Think about, most likely they do have their passport in their shoes. Who knows? Or they have something else in their shoes, and we're just so worried about these people. And so many of us, we end up having a whole new identity, a whole new mask, because we don't want them to see our cracks, our mistakes, our opportunities, our choices. We don't want them to see that, but we forget that we all have our own issues. This guy has his own issues, and he's masking them by judging me. So I want you to remember that. Now, the next thing I want you to, second lesson, is to observe the beautiful ripple effects. Yes, after we take a risk, there are going to be consequences, and it's not easy initially. So after I broke my vase, the death threats weren't just for me, because my father couldn't get me in the US. He decided that he was going to kill my mom and sister in Jordan. My mom at that time was 49, my sister was 17. Can you imagine a 17-year-old girl going to sleep every night and praying to God that she would wake up alive because she's afraid that her dad would kill her at night? So horrible, and it doesn't make any sense. So we had to have my sister and my mom escape from Jordan with nothing, totally escape and come to live with me in the US. Initially, when we were living together, we were living in a very dangerous area in San Diego because we couldn't afford to live in a safe area. We had no furniture, and the three of us, we were living in a one-bedroom apartment because that's all we could afford. It was like, when I remember those days, it was absolutely horrible. And a lot of people would look at that and say, you see, that's what happens when you take a risk. That's why we shouldn't take a risk. That's why we shouldn't be courageous. Who do you think you are? Everybody else is living, and many times in abusive lives, but they deal with it. What's wrong with you to take a risk? That's what I've heard this so many times. But let me tell you where we are today. My mom owns her own daycare. She became the first businesswoman, entrepreneur in our family, and these little kids love her. She cooks for them organic food, and she takes care of them. The parents are in love with her. My sister, she finished not just her bachelor's, her master's as well, and she is growing in leadership. And she happily married, and she has a beautiful 8-year-old son. His name is Alex. So Alex, when he was 3 years old, he came to visit me with my sister from San Diego. He came to visit. As I mentioned, I live in Baton Rouge. My sister and Alex live in San Diego. And it was his first flight ever. He was so excited to, of course, fly to see his auntie, but he was stuck in an airplane all day. He was just like filled with energy, and he was unleashed when I opened the door to my home. And he went to the coffee table and he saw this. No, back to the, yes. And he saw this. And it's a ball that I collect broken shards every time I speak because I am so proud of them, and they keep reminding me to feel the fear and take action and be courageous. So I put it there. And as he walked in, that was the first thing he saw, and he looked at it and he said, "Dima, what is this?" And I felt that the world just stopped. Time stopped. I never thought of the ripple effects of the risk that we took and how we changed our stories, my mom, my sister, and myself. And I started thinking, do I tell this little kid, the 3-year-old kid, that your auntie is crazy and she likes to collect shards, all the glass shards? Or do I tell him that because of these beautiful shards, you are here today, you are healthy and safe, we created a better future for you, that because of these shards, your grandmother is healthy and safe, your mother, your auntie, and we created a whole new story. Now when I see my mom playing with Alex in her kitchen as she's cooking for him, I never hear her talking to him about the glass vase and the importance of being perfect and that he shouldn't make mistakes and that he should be worried of how he's judged by others. She never talks to him about these things. Instead, she tells him to continue to believe in himself, to continue to make mistakes, to color outside of the line, to dream, to have big hopes for his life. And she always tells him that whatever decisions he takes in his life, we're always going to be there to support him. And that is the beautiful ripple effect. That's what makes life so much more worth living, because that one experience made me realize that the risk that I took when I shattered the vase, when I believed in myself, when I decided not to allow these external limitations to stop me and the internal one, now it's having a beautiful effect on Alex and all the future generation in our family, and that's very much worth it. Okay, my clicker, next one. Yes, please. And now this is Alex. So now you can see him. Yeah. So maybe he was 4 in this picture. But he's a little American boy who has his own dreams and he loves to play. He loves Legos, and now he's so much into Lamborghinis for an 8-year-old. So let him dream. It's good. Okay. So next one, please. The next lesson is to continue to feel the fear and to take action anyway. So many people, they tell me, wow, you are so fearless to take such big decisions and risks and to leave a bad marriage. Then I ended up quitting IBM and starting my own company, which is very terrifying. But they don't realize that I don't do these things because I am not afraid. I do them in addition of being afraid. Regardless of being afraid, I take action, and that makes it so much more powerful. Fear will always be here. It's not like one day we're going to wake up and there's going to be no fear, no risks, no consequences. They will always be here. What matters for us is to feel these fears and to take action, to continue to believe in ourselves and continue to grow. So in October, my father discovered about my book, Breaking Vases, that I wrote and published last year. And I haven't heard from him since, well, we haven't communicated since 2000. That's when the death threats started. But the death threats was always through other people. He would see people and he would say, I'm going to make them minced meat. I'm going to go to the US. I'm going to hire people to kill them. So all of the horrible stuff, all the threats we were getting is through people that he would see, family members, close friends that would keep talking to us. But the thing is, the positive thing, the last few years, we haven't heard anything. And that's amazing. To me, I thought, okay, maybe I can move on from all of this horrible thing of the past and be able to go through healing, which I did. I went through intense healing for years to even be able to talk about my story. I started talking about the story, I wrote the book, and then he discovered about it in October. And everything went horrible all over again. The threats, now instead of telling people what he's gonna do to us, now he can post it on Facebook. So yeah, and it's just absolutely horrible. And I was so shocked about my own reaction. I'm now 43, but I felt like I was that 24-year-old girl the moment when I left that horrible marriage and I broke the vase. I felt so insecure. My confidence crashed to the floor. I was so scared of even standing on the stage and speaking, even when I'm not talking about my story, even when I'm just giving a leadership training. I was so uncomfortable and I couldn't concentrate when I was coaching. All of that because of all the fears, the insecurities, the stories, the shame, all of that appeared all at once. And I started, after weeks and weeks of dealing with this, I started telling myself, again, that I have a choice. I can continue to live with this and be the victim and be the person who's just like, oh, it's not fair to keep saying that, or I can truly take action and move on with my life. I'm definitely not the victim, and I don't think any of you're the victim. We need to continue to move forward and take action. And the taking action was, I notified the police. I got the FBI involved. So now I am very much aware if anything crazy is gonna come my way. I went to work, I coached, I stood on the stage, I gave speeches, and I'm not gonna allow anybody to stand in my way because I know that I'm worth so much more than these horrible old stories and expectations that don't make any sense and they're not helping anybody. I have the power to change my future, and all of you have the power to change your future. So now, next one, please. So now, as I'm thinking about everybody I'm interacting with and coaching, and as I'm looking at you, I want you to realize how much power we have about our life. We forget that. We have the power to take risks. And so many people would say, well, your story is so courageous, but I cannot do that. My life is different. I cannot do it. We all have a story, regardless. Some of them are better than others, but we all have challenges in our lives. We all have vases that are stopping us and making us feel so terrified about our lives. But we need to keep taking action. If we want to continue to grow, if we want to create a new story, a better future for ourselves and for our children and the next generation, we cannot just wait for that to happen, because it's not going to happen if we wait. We have to take action. So now, as I'm telling you all of my stories and experiences, I want to hear from you. What are some thoughts that came to your mind as I'm sharing with you my story? You don't have to tell us about, like, you can tell us as much as you want, as long as you're comfortable. But what came to your mind related to you personally, your professional growth, or as women in general, when we're talking about women and the stories that we're told since we're little girls, and even the stories we're told in the society as we get into business and into leadership. So I want to hear from you. What are some of your thoughts? What's your name?
Gia Scott.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, so I want you to think of something you want to shatter. You're welcome to share with us or not, that's okay. And let me know when you're ready.
It actually goes along with something you said about letting go of trying to be perfect. I know so many of us who are in the junior league, that's the type of personality we are, which basically is the reason why we're part of this amazing organization. And I struggle with that on a daily basis because I'm such a giver, and I want to give, sometimes to my detriment, because I just want to make that other person either happy or have that warm and fuzzy feeling, but sometimes I want to either get it back and I don't get it back, or, I mean, just, y'all all know probably what I'm talking about. And so I probably need a shatter wanting to be perfect all the time.
So what you're going to do about it? No, before this. Before, no, so you want to shatter that. So how are you going to program yourself differently? How are you going to act differently in the future?
Probably stop saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
And I have begun that journey just a little bit. You know, the people at my church don't appreciate it because I've been telling them I'm not going to be program committee, church clerk, finance clerk, and all that. I have begun that, but just to do that more, because that's probably the only time I've said no is to the church family.
Yeah.
That's so bad, y'all.
Yeah, because
Can you imagine telling your pastor no? But anyway.
when you say no to something, you're saying yes to something else.
That's right.
So when you're saying no to this, you're saying yes to time for yourself, to relax,
Yes.
to work out, to follow your passion, all of this wonderful stuff. And we forget about it.
And that's going to be key because my son is about to graduate high school. My daughter is about to get married, and I'm seriously going to have an empty nest. So it's going to be time for me.
Well, here you go. We're going to fill your hands. So don't shatter it yet.
Okay.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to count down. And actually, let's energize you a little. Stand up. And we're not done after this, so don't leave. And we're going to count down. 4, 3, 2, 1. And then shatter it. And that's when you're going to smash it. Oh, what do you prefer? Shatter it, smash it, or what would you like? Smash it. Okay, so let's start the countdown. Go. 4, 3, 2, 1. Smash it! Very good. No more perfection.
That's right.
Yeah, no more perfection.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I hope you're going to leave with some powerful messages that you're going to remember every day. Keep remembering to break your vases. Keep remembering that we all have our cracks and it's beautiful. Think of the things that you try to hide about yourself and recognize that this is your beauty. We all have challenges. And yes, there are things that we experience in life that are so not fair. So not fair. But we need to move on. We cannot be stuck in the past. We cannot be like Mary, stuck when she was 12 years old because she thought that she was not good enough and lived her life. Things happened in our past, but there are more amazing things that are waiting for us in the future. And if we're stuck in the past, we're not going to experience them. So shatter your vase, believe in yourself, help other women, and keep feeling the fear.